I think what makes me most vulnerable is probably seeing people being subjected to things. I think that probably brings me the most angst. Being, people who haven't been given the opportunity to have the awareness to understand, to object to something, or when they're being subjected to something, that kind of gives me angst a little bit more. So kind of like a freedom fighter type of mentality. Because once again, I come off that era of the Black Panthers, and you come off that era of Martin Luther King, and these are stories, or those stories now that they like. What was the story the guy they just did the movie on Fred Hampton? Everybody, it's like a new story. Like this is stuff I was given young. This is stuff that my age group that we talked about young, even though it wasn't publicized. We knew of these atrocities. We knew of all these things that were going on.
What got you involved in martial arts? Like what turned you into a person that wanted to learn how to fight? Because what I hear from you is these inspiration, and you're talking about these amazing inspirations who essentially were fighters in their own right? Fred Hampton, which, by the way, that film was amazing. Malcolm X, Dr. King, Muhammad Ali, all of them, right? So, but all of these men, to some extent, were fighters in their own right, and they were fierce. Sure. And so you're growing up on the back end of these men's lives who are trying to set the tone, and you're living in a neighborhood. You're living in Atlanta, so you're living in kind of the epicenter of where a lot of marches happened, and a lot of that energy sort of was created. But you're also growing up Jehovah's Witness, where you don't quite see yourself you don't see yourself represented. So you have this duality that's happening, and I'm just kind of curious, how does it end up taking you into martial arts?
Well, first of all, it will probably be more from the Jehovah's Witness side, because the discipline, right? Because the whole thing about being in a more theologic practice like that, it was all about discipline and self-control. So being that component, and that's what led me to yoga as well. Like I understand the importance of having a discipline. Martial arts came from more of my divorce. I was frustrated. I grew up fighting. I didn't go to martial arts to learn how to fight. I went for the discipline, to circle back to that. Because I grew up fighting. I grew up in Atlanta. My cousins would make me fight. We just fighting was just a part of the culture. You can't let people, when you come up in a economically depressed area, right? That's the proper PC language for it, right? So I would go, be with my cousins. And so these are my earliest fights. They would make me fight at like probably 4 to 5 years old. Like we'll get out there, like the big boys don't want to fight. So they'll get all the little boys. It's like gladiator school. And then we'll, nobody's there. There's no adult supervision really, It's just us and the kids. And they would like get us a circle, and it's like, you have to fight. So they'll, back then it's different in our communities. Like once again, I come up in an age where like nobody's calling the police. We didn't have a great sense of trust for the police and stuff like that. So we're not calling the police. So anytime any altercation you got in, you're on your own. Just looking for an outlet when you're in a circumstance that you don't have control over, it's outside of you. You've been subjected to somebody else's decision about your life. So just finding a space to work the frustration out. And once I had been long removed from Jehovah's Witness, I left when I was like 18, 19. I left the, Jehovah's Witness organization practice. And so there was, I got divorced at 29. I actually didn't start bodyguard working until after that. I'm fighting, all the pent up stuff that hadn't been dealt with from, childhood, from being around the Jehovah's Witness organizations, from the the fights, all these things, all the mental emotional trauma that comes from, those spaces. Martial arts, once again, the discipline gave me a baseline to work around in order to work out my angst in a formed way, a process. I started reading a lot of psychologist books too, but yeah, basically it was just to deal with the anxiety, the stress, the heartbreak of the divorce. We just didn't work. But we were living together, and the space was so bad that in order to get out of the house, I went to LA Fitness and started taking yoga. And like I said, so I grew up fighting. I don't have any insecurities around that. So I'm in the room doing yoga, and I'm, of course, the whole gym is looking at me like crazy. All the other guys are like, "What's wrong with this guy taking yoga?" This is like 2005, 2004, 2005, 2004, chapter 5. So that was my first introduction to yoga. I was already in martial arts at that point, so I was always taking martial arts, getting a little bit more flexible. And in 2006, a good friend of mine, Derek Fonza, last I heard, he was in Singapore. He invited me to a hot yoga class. And so I went to the hot yoga class. And then from then I got into the hot yoga, got into that aspect of it. And, you know, during that time, 2004, 2000, I was 22 to like 2014, I was doing bodyguard work. So I was doing hot yoga and yoga off and on as I was going through that space at the same time. I went to a teacher training. I got the opportunity. I've only been teaching yoga since 2017. I was more than martial arts. I was trained to be a martial arts instructor before then. Great instruction. I got to deal with several different masterful people in that space. It brought me the opportunity to be at peace, man. I say it in my class all the time, like, to be able to be at peace is everything, right? Your joy is inside of your peace. Your happiness is inside of your ability to find peace. And inside of that room on that mat for duration, because a lot of my trials, I was doing, 2004 onward, my safest space, the safest space for me in the world was on my mat. That was the only space that I felt safe. And so that allowed me to begin practicing my peace in small doses. You know what I'm saying? Hour class, and I was doing Bikram, so that's 90 minutes. At one point, I was taking 12 classes a week. Yoga has allowed me to practice my peace, and that's what I try to get people to understand. You want to practice your asana, of course. You want to get better things I want to do, but before you can get to any of those things in a healthy space, you got to be able to identify your peace, identify with peace.